All right, Brett Garamello, the Drone Pilot Pro here. We're gonna start by figuring out which drone should you buy. So what you need to do is decide what your budget is for your drone. Is it $150? Is it $800? Is it $2,000? Now keep in mind that there are a few accessories that you will likely need when flying your drone. So keep that in mind for your overall budget. And also keep in mind that prices of drones are likely to change over time. So click the links below for the most up-to-date prices. There are so many drones I could mention, but for the sake of time and practicality, I've narrowed it down to my favorite 2 or 3 drones for each price category. To save you time and make it easier for you, you can skip ahead to the part of the video where I talk about the drones in your particular budget as seen right here. All right, so let's get into it. I'm gonna go over the best drones for under $500. Because there are so many drones to choose, I broke it down into 2 categories. The first category is $200 and less, and the second category is $200 to $500. All right, so let's get into it. The first category is $200 and less. Now the DJI Tello is the first drone up. DJI is a leading company in consumer drones. The Tello flies for up to 13 minutes and shoots 720 HD video and takes 5 megapixel photos. You can change the batteries easily, and it does some cool tricks like 360 flips and throwing it in the air and it starts flying. You could also land it in the palm of your hand. For just $99 or $150 for the combo, it's a great drone for kids, families, and those who want to fly mostly indoors. It will fly outdoors on a non-windy day. Next up is the foldable Holystone HS270 drone. This is a step up in camera quality and price. It shoots 2.7K video and has a camera that tilts down 90 degrees at just $160 at the time of this recording. Unlike the DJI Tello, which records footage on your device, you have the option of recording your footage onto a micro SD card with the Holystone HS270. The HS270 also comes with a really good controller for this price, and this is a GPS drone, so it should give you relatively smooth flying and stability. It has a bunch of great features like follow me mode, point of interest, waypoints, and tap fly, which all function correctly, but don't expect the same smoothness and execution of features like this that you'd see on a $1,000 drone. They work correctly, but obviously this is a budget drone. However, it will return to home just as well as those $1,000 drones and has landing lights on the bottom for low light. It has normal flying mode and sport mode for faster speeds and flies for up to 18 minutes and comes with an extra battery with 4 LED lights to remind you of the remaining battery life. It can handle wind gusts up to about 15 miles per hour, and it can fly about 1,500 feet away. With all those features, I would definitely recommend the Holystone over the DJI Tello. Last in the $200 or less category is the Snapton SP510, which folds out and resembles the Holystone HS270. Now, just like the Holystone, the Snapton comes with 1 extra battery that has LED lights to remind you how much battery life is left, has a micro SD card slot, card not included, and is a GPS drone, has a tilting gimbal, and shoots 2.7K video. So, is it better than the Holystone HS270? So even though the Snapton is $10 more expensive, I would still recommend the Holystone because they have a great reputation for customer service. The Holystone HS270 also has a few more minutes of flight time than the Snapton, and it flies about 500 feet farther than the Snapton. The other features and camera quality is very similar otherwise, so those weren't much of a factor. So if you have $200 or less, I would get the Holystone HS270 drone. All right, moving on to the second category, which is $200 to $500. First up is the Power Extra F11 Pro. This is one of the most affordable 4K drones. It has a GoPro style wide angle camera at 120 degrees field of view. It is a GPS drone with no obstacle avoiding sensors. However, because it doesn't have any sensors, you can fly it just above ground level and get some incredible low shots. It will follow you normally front and back, and also from a sideways profile, which for this price is incredible. It has up to 28 minutes of flight time and comes with an extra battery, so that'll give you about 50 plus minutes of flight time. The F11 Pro has a range of about 1,600 feet away, and it has other cool features like time photos and waypoints. The only cons are the fact that the batteries take several hours to charge, and it weighs over 250 grams, so you'll have to register it. Both of those aren't really that big of a deal, but I wanted to let you know. So all in all, this is a great drone for a beginner or someone on a budget who wants a 4K drone that is easy to fly. Next up is the DJI Mavic Mini. The DJI Mavic Mini is smaller than many smartphones, weighs less than a Mavic 2 battery, and flies up to 30 minutes. It has a 3-axis gimbal and shoots 2.7K video. It doesn't have any obstacle avoiding sensors. This is why I recommend getting the Mavic Mini Combo, because it includes a propeller guards, which can protect your drone while flying indoors or near obstacles. In fact, it seems more like a propeller cage than a guard, providing more protection than a propeller guards for other drones. For this reason alone, I recommend this drone for kids. Now folded up, the Mavic Mini and Mini 2 are DJI's most portable outdoor drones, and unfolded, it is nearly identical in size to the DJI Mavic Air. This is a great drone for someone who wants a light, portable drone, or who needs a backup drone for more risky shots. And the overall smoothness and image quality will be better than the F11 Pro. The last drone is the DJI Mini 2, which is the Mavic Mini's older brother. Now it's worth the upgrade from the original Mini because it is better in wind, has OcuSync 2.0 so it can fly several miles away if needed, giving you much better stability on a windy day, and you don't have to worry about it losing a signal. It also shoots 4K, is the same size and almost the same weight as the original Mini, so it comes in at under 250 grams with a battery. If you're on a budget, I would get the F11 Pro, but if you can afford it, the Mini 2 is definitely worth it. I actually would recommend the combo, which comes with 3 batteries and a nice carrying case. However, that will put you over $500, but you won't regret it. Again, links to all the drones are in the description below. So you're looking for a drone under $1,000. These are what I consider cinematic drones at a reasonable price. There are so many drones I could mention, but for the sake of time and practicality, I have narrowed it down to my 3 favorite drones listed from the least expensive to the most expensive. There are many discontinued or refurbished drones in this price category, but for the sake of staying up to date with the newest technology, I will only include 3 drones that are still being manufactured, and you can buy new between $500 to $1,000 for the base unit, excluding combos at this price point. First up is the versatile Parrot Anafi, which is the only portable drone with a camera that tilts 180 degrees, including straight up. It also has a 3-axis gimbal that shoots 4K HDR video with 100 megabit per second bit rate that zooms optically 2.8 times from 26 to 78 millimeters for video. The Anafi can fly in winds up to 31 miles per hour and shoots 21 megapixel photos with an ability to fly up to 2 miles away. It also gives you up to 25 minutes of flight time and is portable for travel. Now there are 3 different options in this price category, including the base model or extended, which comes with a few extra batteries and a carrying bag, the Parrot Anafi FPV with first-person view goggles, and Parrot Anafi Work for $1,000, which allows you to capture 3D models on Capture 4D at no extra cost. So the Parrot Anafi base model is the most affordable, but you also have options for an FPV experience and working with photogrammetry, real estate, and many other applications. Next up is the DJI Mavic Air 2, which is the best bang for your buck. This portable drone shoots 4K up to 60 frames per second, has more range, up to 6 miles, and flight time up to 34 minutes than any of these drones under $1,000. With its half-inch camera sensor, it is able to get very good image quality, taking up to 48 megapixel photos and capturing 8K hyperlapses. Because the controller is almost identical to the DJI Mini 2, you can use the Mini 2 controller to fly the Air 2 as well. By the time you're watching this video, I imagine DJI will sell the Mavic Air 2 aircraft by itself, and I imagine the Mini 2 also by itself, so that you only need one controller to fly 2 drones. If I had to choose a drone under $1,000, I would not hesitate to get the Mavic Air 2, and I recommend the combo because it comes with 3 batteries, a charging hub, and a carrying bag that you wish you had bought if you only bought the base model. The last drone in this category is the world's best fully autonomous self-flying drone, the Skydio 2, which is great for vloggers and anyone who wants to film themselves without technical skills. Skydio guarantees that this drone will not crash and will repair or replace the drone if this happens during the first year, and can shoot 4K up to 60 frames per second and 12 megapixel photos. It also has a beacon, or what I like to call a magic wand, that allows the drone to follow you up to 1.5 kilometers away. With the remote controller, you get up to 3.5 kilometers range. This drone is portable, but doesn't fold up like its peers. Skydio is also newer on the drone scene than DJI, and it's an American company with the best artificial intelligence on the market. It could be the dark horse in this category, but some might view it as a one-trick pony. While the artificial intelligence makes this drone difficult to crash, it doesn't provide quite as smooth shots as I would hope for while it tracks a person or subject. Thus, I would still go with the Mavic Air 2 because of its longer flight time, better range, more portable, and the ability to upgrade to more expensive drones in the DJI lineup while having the experience with DJI drones. I don't think you can make a bad decision in this price category. You're gonna get a great drone no matter which drone you choose. Again, links to all these drones are in the description below. This category is professional drones, no doubt about it, from $1,000 to $2,000. Let's start with my overall favorite drone, the one I fly the most, and my recommendation in this category, the DJI Mavic 2 Pro. Sure, it only shoots 4K up to 30 frames per second, but personally, I find that this drone is so stable and gets such smooth footage, and when you're filming with the drone, it's so far from the objects that you're filming that you don't really need the 60 frames per second. 30 frames per second or 24 frames per second is plenty. Therefore, this isn't as big a deal as people make it out to be. It flies up to 31 minutes and has a really impressive 5-mile maximum range. It also has a Hasselblad camera with a 1-inch sensor with a 28mm lens, and it has the ability to shoot in 10-bit log video as well for those professionals wanting to color grade. Active track is much improved and has some cool new features like hyperlapse, boomerang, and asteroid mode. As you can tell, I highly recommend this drone. Now, in a close second to the Mavic 2 Pro is the DJI Phantom 4 Pro version 2. Now, one thing to consider is this drone is much bigger and less portable than the DJI Mavic 2 Pro, which is why I chose it second. However, a bigger drone like this often looks more impressive for clients and may be the drone that you want. It does have an advantage of shooting 4K up to 60 frames per second and also shoots in D-Cine-like mode, which to me looks slightly better than the footage from the Mavic 2 Pro. However, I'm just splitting hairs here. If you're a pixel peeper and you need the best drone for under $2,000, this is the drone. It also includes obstacle avoidance on 4 sides and is slightly faster than the Mavic 2 Pro, but only ever so slightly. Now, with that said, personally, flying both of these drones a lot, I find the Mavic 2 Pro slightly easier than the Phantom 4 Pro because the Phantom 4 Pro drifts ever so slightly and it's just a little harder to control than the Mavic 2 Pro. So keep that in mind. So for that reason as well, I have to recommend this drone as second in this price category. Now, last up is the Autel Evo 2 drones. The Evo 2 is definitely one of the top 2 consumer foldable drones in the market. So there are 3 different Autel Evo 2 drones, but they all have the same body. The only thing different are the cameras, and best of all, they are interchangeable. So you can buy each camera by itself and swap it out, which is great for consumers, professionals, and enterprise solutions, such as inspections and search and rescue, and many more uses. So when I mention the different Evo 2 drones, I'm essentially just talking about the camera and not the drone body. The Evo 2 drones are the Evo 2, the Evo 2 Pro, and the Evo 2 Dual. So they will all fly for up to 40 minutes, which in reality will be about 35 minutes. They have the ability to shoot native 10-bit 8K and 6K video with a processor able to handle those big resolutions. The Evo 2 has 12 obstacle avoiding sensors, which makes it similar to the first Skydio drone, the Skydio R1. They call it omnidirectional, which basically is true 360 obstacle avoidance, where the Mavic 2 has some blind spots that don't make a true 360 degrees. Also, the obstacle avoiding sensors on the left side and the right side of the Mavic 2 only work in active track and quick shot modes. So the Evo 2 will be better at avoiding obstacles as it always uses all of its sensors, even with its active track, which Autel calls Dynamic Track 2.0. Out of the box, the Evo 2 has less contrast than the Mavic 2, but in the app you can adjust that, of course, or in post-production. However, because the Evo 2 shoots 8K and the Evo 2 Pro shoots 6K, you can crop into the shot and it will still have good resolution. This is perhaps its biggest advantage over the Mavic 2 Pro. Now, another thing I was a little disappointed about, I wish the Evo 2 was smaller, but it's understandable considering it needed a bigger, more powerful battery for longer flight time, along with enough space to process that 6K and 8K camera without overheating. So it'd be nice if it were a little smaller, but having a foldable 8K and 6K drone is something I'm super pumped up about. The amazing thing that Autel has done with the Evo 2, which I've been saying for years, is the fact that you can buy the camera gimbal alone by itself and swap the 8K version for the 6K camera with the bigger sensor. So being able to buy any of the 3 camera gimbals by themselves is great because you can have one drone and multiple cameras, thus saving you a lot of space in your camera drone bag. With all that said, I would still choose the Mavic 2 Pro over the Evo 2 Pro because of the image color and contrast look better to me right out of the Mavic 2 Pro camera, whereas I'm not as thrilled with the Evo 2 colors. So for someone who doesn't want to spend time adjusting the colors in post-production, the Mavic 2 Pro will be better. And like I said earlier, the Mavic 2 Pro is the easiest drone to fly in this price category by a slim margin. Therefore, I wouldn't hesitate to recommend the Mavic 2 Pro. Now, DJI FPV was released this year, though many would argue it is not a true FPV drone. I consider it a hybrid drone for those looking to cross the bridge from traditional GPS drones to FPV drones. Having this 4K 60 frame per second drone will enable drone pilots to get shots they normally wouldn't be able to capture, and flying in manual mode or FPV mode, which goes up to 87 miles per hour, will make you a better drone pilot. DJI has created an app that allows you to practice virtually before attempting these aerial acrobatics in the real world. So I think this could be a great drone to have in your drone lineup, maybe not as your primary drone, but one you could use for commercial and business purposes for certain types of creative shots. DJI FPV drone requires wearing goggles that come with the combo, so in most countries, this means you'll need another person who keeps an eye on your drone, also known as a visual observer. And as I always mention, buying the right drone is only half of the battle. Learning how to technically and creatively use them is the most important half. I made a free 30-minute DJI drone training, and in that free training, I also go into my top 7 secrets for flying DJI drones and answer a ton of questions about drones. So you can watch that free training by clicking on the link below. And now let's get into the rest of the video. So we're gonna talk about the big dogs. The big drones. That's right, drones in this category are more than $2,000. In this price range, you have a whole lot of options. For example, if you want a long-range surveillance drone, you could drop 45 grand on the Vanguard by Airborne Drones. But for those 45 stacks of money, you get up to 94 minutes of flight time with an incredible 22-mile range. Now, if money is not an object, then you can spend a few $100,000 and fly around in your drone. But in this video, I'm going to be talking about the best drones over $2,000 for filmmaking and photography. So let's get into it. First thing you have to decide is whether you want to use a DSLR or a cinema camera. If so, I would recommend the DJI MATRICE 600 Pro. Now for Sony camera users, you might like the Sony AirPeak, which is scheduled to be released in the spring of 2021. Alright, so let's talk about DJI's MATRICE 600 Pro, as I like to call it, the beast. It will carry a payload of up to 13 pounds or 6 kilograms, so you can mount different cameras, from mirrorless to RED to Alexa mini cameras. The DJI Ronin MX gimbal mounts directly into the MATRICE 600 Pro, so you can use the same cinema camera on the ground or in the air without having to spend time balancing it, thus allowing you to get smooth cinematic footage of the highest quality both in the sky and walking around. The MATRICE 600 Pro can fly up to 5 kilometers range. Now that total flight time depends on what camera you use. With a RED camera or equivalent, you'll get about 18 minutes of flight time. With an X7 camera or smaller, you get about 30 to 35 minutes of flight time. Also, make sure you get the TB48S batteries because they'll give you a few more minutes of flight time. Links to those batteries and the entire MATRICE 600 Pro cinema setup in the description below. A nice feature is the fact that if one of the propellers stops working, the drone will not fall from the sky. DJI also has RTK system for this drone if you want centimeter level accuracy for mapping and industrial applications. Now next up, the Sony AirPeak drone. As of the making of this video, this drone has not been released, but it will be available for purchase in the spring of 2021 according to Sony, so I wanted to include it. So all of this info is based on what Sony has reported, so take it with a grain of salt. You can equip this drone with any Sony Alpha mirrorless camera, such as the Sony a7S III or the Sony a1. At first glance, this drone looks a lot like the Inspire 2 with an FPV camera, obstacle avoiding sensors on all sides including the top. Now note, the Inspire 2 only has obstacle avoidance on the front and the bottom, and a cable for a live feed into your Sony camera. This setup is ideal for 2 people, a pilot and a camera operator. The FPV camera is most likely for the drone pilot, while the feed into the camera is for the person operating the camera. If you're not going to use a DSLR or cinema camera, you still have 2 of the best drones available, the DJI Inspire 2 or the DJI MATRICE 300 series. Now, if money is no object, I would recommend getting the DJI MATRICE 300 series because it does everything the DJI Inspire 2 can do, only it has much longer flight time, the ability to fly in rain with an IP45 rating, and most of all, it's not affected by telephone wiring and other electric circuitry in and around buildings that cause interference on the Inspire 2. Unlike the Inspire 2, it has obstacle avoidance on all 6 sides. The MATRICE 300 is the Swiss Army knife of drones, and its predecessor, the MATRICE 200-210, is also in that category, though the software and ease of use is much better with the MATRICE 300. It is the most versatile industrial and cinematic platform available today. Its uses range from surveillance, thermal inspection, typography, and cartography. The MATRICE performs in extreme temperatures and weather conditions, such as Arctic and rainy conditions. With the MATRICE 300s, pilots can mount up to 3 payloads simultaneously, including the H20 series payload, which is 4 cameras in one, a wide-angle 12 megapixel camera, a 20 megapixel camera with 23 times optical zoom, a state-of-the-art thermal camera, and a laser rangefinder. Holy smokes, are you kidding me? It's like a normal DJI drone on steroids, with features like active track from extreme distances and memory of previous shoots in order to save time and execute your project or mission. And for cinematographers, you can use a Zenmuse X7 camera with this MATRICE drone, giving it 6K capabilities, or mount DJI's Zenmuse P1 for photogrammetry that gives you full frame 45 megapixel photos without the jello effect using a global mechanical shutter. The MATRICE 300 flies up to 55 minutes of flight time and a 9.3 mile or 15 kilometer range and flies up to 52 miles per hour. Now, the one advantage the Inspire 2 has is slightly more speed than the MATRICE 300. And whereas the MATRICE is built more for industrial application, the Inspire 2 is built with cinematographers in mind. At the moment, the Inspire 2 is the fastest non-FPV drone, reaching up to 65 miles per hour and also capable of capturing stable video in 40+ mile per hour winds. Now, the Zenmuse X7 gimbal camera has a Super 35 sensor with 14 stops of dynamic range and the ability to shoot up to 6K in Cinema DNG and 5.2K in Apple ProRes while capturing raw photos at 20 frames per second at 24 megapixels. This camera is compatible with 4 prime lenses with a front FPV camera, 360 rotating gimbal, and dual heating batteries. The Inspire 2 has the features needed for professional cinematographers. For photographers though, I would go with the MATRICE 300 because you can use the Zenmuse P1, which at the moment is not capable with the Inspire 2. If you want to learn more about these drones, I made a free drone gear guide, which I just updated for 2021. In that guide, you'll learn more about drones in this video, along with other drones for different budgets. I also included my favorite software and accessories. So download that drone guide by clicking up here or on the description below. I'm Brick Aramella, the Drone Pilot Pro, and remember, fly like a pro.